The year is 2022. The setting is a cavernous convention hall in Omaha, Nebraska. It is the final day of the National Symposium on Agricultural Engineering. A man named Dr. Alistair Finch is at the podium. He is a professor from Purdue University. His hair is gray, his suit is sharp. He is presenting the keynote paper. Its title is Recalibrating Legacy Assets, Hyper-Efficiency in Pre-Digital Power Units. The room is full of academics, engineers, corporate executives from John Deere, Case IH, and AGCO. Dr. Finch clicks to his final slide. It shows a graph, a line representing fuel consumption per hour. The red line is a brand new $500,000 tractor. The blue line is a 1979 John Deere 4440. The blue line is lower, significantly lower. A quiet murmur moves through the room. Finch lets the silence hang for a moment. He then speaks. The source of this data is not a university lab. It is not a corporate research facility. It comes from a single 3,000-acre farm in southern Ohio. For 40 years, every single piece of equipment on this farm has been a legacy model, each one modified for efficiency based on a set of principles we are just now beginning to understand. He clicks to the next slide. A name appears in simple white text on a black background. The Vance Farm. Proprietor, Elara Vance. In the third row, an old man sits perfectly still. His name is Marcus Henderson. He is 84 years old. For 30 years, he was the regional sales manager for John Deere. He doesn't hear the applause starting. He doesn't see the people standing up. He is staring at the name, Vance. He reaches into his leather briefcase. He pulls out a small black moleskin notebook, one of dozens he kept over his career. He flips through the brittle pages. His handwriting is a sharp, neat cursive. He finds the entry. The date is March 12, 1982. The entry reads, Vance Farm, Robert Vance, deceased. Daughter, Elara, approximately 19 years old. 4440 model, serial number 021887R. Thrown rod, catastrophic engine failure. She came to the dealership today, requested a full engine rebuild kit. I refused the sale. The cost of parts and labor would exceed the machine's value, advised her to trade it in, offered her fair market value and financing on a new 4450. She has no capital, no credit. She refused the financing. I told her the tractor was a lost cause. I told her I could not, in good conscience, let her throw her father's money away on a dead machine. I told her I was trying to protect her. She left with nothing. Final assessment: the Vance Farm will be sold by year's end. The tractor is unserviceable. Marcus Henderson closes the notebook. He looks up at the screen, at her name, Elara Vance. He was a good man. He coached Little League. He served on the church board. He genuinely believed he was being kind. And in that gap between the kindness he offered and the truth on that screen is a story. It is a story about a tractor. But it is also a story about the quietest, loneliest, and most profound way to prove someone wrong. This channel tells the stories that get lost between the lines of history, the stories of people who were told they couldn't and did anyway. If you believe these stories deserve to be told, take a moment to subscribe, because what happened in that 40-year gap is a lesson in patience, ingenuity, and the devastating power of a quiet fact. Let me tell you about Elara Vance. The story starts not in a convention hall, but in the silence of a farmhouse kitchen. March of 1982. The air smells of coffee and grief. Elara was 19. Her father, Robert Vance, had been buried 2 weeks before. A heart attack, sudden and total, in the middle of planting season. He left behind a wife in shock, a daughter who had just dropped out of college to come home, and a farm that was drowning. 240 acres, a mortgage payment due in May, and one tractor, a John Deere 4440. Her father had bought it new in 1979. It was his pride. He had paid cash for it. A rarity then, an impossibility now. 2 days before, Elara had been trying to finish turning the south field. There was a sound. Not a loud sound, a sickening, metallic pop, followed by a grinding shudder that shook the whole cab. Then silence. The engine was seized. A local mechanic came out. He was a friend of her father's. He took one look. He wiped his hands on a rag. He wouldn't meet her eyes. She threw a rod, Elara. It went right through the block. The engine is gone. So she did the only thing she knew to do. She drove her father's old Ford pickup into town, to the John Deere dealership, the place her father had trusted for 30 years. The sign outside was a cheerful green and yellow. Inside, the air smelled of new tires and fresh paint. Marcus Henderson met her at the service counter. He was the manager. He had known her since she was a little girl. He placed a kind hand on her shoulder. "Elara, I am so sorry about your father. He was a fine man, a truly fine man." She nodded. She couldn't speak. She just handed him the piece of paper with the mechanic's notes. He read it. His face softened with pity. "Oh, honey, this is the last thing you needed." He led her back to his office. He sat her down. He offered her a cup of coffee. She shook her head no. "I need to order a rebuild kit, Mr. Henderson. Pistons, sleeves, crankshaft, the whole thing." He leaned back in his chair. He steepled his fingers. He looked at her with genuine, unmistakable concern. "Elara, let's talk about that. A full rebuild on a 4440. That's a big job. Our shop rate is $40 an hour. You're looking at 100 hours of labor, easy. That's $4,000. The parts kit alone is another $3,000. You're looking at $7,000, maybe $8,000. He paused. Let the numbers sink in. The book value on a 79 4440 with a blown engine, it's maybe $5,000. You'd be putting $8,000 into a $5,000 machine. You'd be upside down before you even turned the key. She just stared at him. Her voice was quiet. "I'm not asking you to do the labor. I'll do it myself. I just need the parts." Mr. Henderson sighed, a deep, paternal sigh. "Elara, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've seen this a dozen times. A young person tries to save a machine for sentimental reasons. It never works. An engine rebuild is not like changing a tire. It requires specialty tools, precision measurements. One mistake and the whole thing is junk. You'd be wasting your money." Her jaw tightened. "My father taught me. He let me help him rebuild the engine on our old 4020. He said he learned from his father." Mr. Henderson gave her a sad smile. "That's different, honey. This is a modern diesel engine. High compression, tight tolerances. It's not the same. I knew your father, Elara. He was a smart man. He would not want you to do this. He would want you to be smart, to cut your losses. I'm not going to be the man who sells you $3,000 worth of parts that will end up as a pile of scrap in your barn. I just can't do it. It wouldn't be right." He leaned forward. His voice became earnest. "Here's what I can do. Because I respected your father, I will give you $5,000 for that tractor, as is, right now. That's top dollar for a trade-in with a dead engine. We have a new 4450 on the lot, a beautiful machine. We can roll your trade-in value over. We can work with the bank, get you a payment plan you can handle. It's the smart move, Alara. It's the only move. She stood up. The office felt small, suffocating. She looked at this kind man, this man who thought he was helping her, this man who had already decided she would fail. She said 2 words. "Thank you." And she walked out. He watched her go. He shook his head slowly. He felt a pang of sadness for her. He genuinely believed he had done the right thing. He believed he had protected her from her own foolishness. Certainty, delivered with kindness, it is more damaging than outright hostility, because you cannot fight it with anger. It can only be disproven, and that takes decades. Have you ever been told you couldn't do something? Not by an enemy, by a friend, by someone who said they had your best interests at heart, someone who smiled while they drew a circle around you and told you not to step out of it. What did that feel like? Let me know in the comments below, because what Alara did next was not born from anger. It was born from a quiet, cold resolve. She drove home. The 10 miles of country road felt like 100. She didn't cry. Tears were a luxury she couldn't afford. She pulled the truck into the farmyard. The silence was absolute. Her mother was inside, likely asleep. The grief had taken all her energy. Alara walked past the house. She walked to the old workshop her father had built. It was a simple pole barn, smelled of grease, sawdust, and damp earth. Her father's tools hung in neat outlines on the pegboard walls. Wrenches sorted by size, screwdrivers by type. A lifetime of order. On the main workbench, under a single bare bulb, sat a book. It was thick, 3 inches, maybe 4. Its cover was green. The John Deere logo was faded. The title read, Technical Manual, Tractors 4240, 4440, 4640, 4840. It was the official factory service manual. Her father had ordered it the same day he bought the tractor. He always said, "You don't own the machine if you can't fix the machine." The cover was stained with grease. The edges of the pages were dark with fingerprints. Her father's fingerprints. Alara opened it. The binding creaked. Inside the front cover, there was a note, tucked into a plastic sleeve. It was in her father's familiar, blocky handwriting. A simple number 2 pencil on a piece of graph paper. It read, Ellie, everything you need is in here. Every bolt, every torque spec, every part number. The book doesn't lie. People will. They'll tell you what you can and can't do. They mean well. It doesn't matter. Trust the book. Trust your hands. The dirt is enough. Love, Dad. She read it once, then twice. She ran her finger over the words. The graphite was smeared. The book doesn't lie. She closed her eyes. She could almost hear his voice. Calm, certain. Not the false certainty of Mr. Henderson, but the earned certainty of a man who knew his tools. She opened her eyes. She turned to page 240-10-1. Section 240. Engine. Group 10. Engine removal. The first step was to drain the coolant. She found a 5-gallon bucket. She walked out of the shop and into the cool March air. The 4440 sat in the yard like a great green tombstone. She knelt down. She found the petcock at the bottom of the radiator. She put the bucket underneath. She turned it. A stream of green fluid trickled out. The sound was small. But in the silence of that farm, it was the sound of a decision being made. The rebuild had begun. This is where the story becomes bigger than one person. It becomes about knowledge. The knowledge held in a book, and the knowledge held in your hands. The dealership had refused her. They had cut her off from the official supply chain, so she had to create her own. The manual listed every part number. A piston was an AR90453. A sleeve was an R63344. A crankshaft was an RE13511. She sat at the kitchen table with the phone book, not the local one. She had her father's collection of phone books from across the Midwest. He used to buy parts from salvage yards. She started calling, one by one. A yard in Kearney, Nebraska. The man's name was Earl. He had a 4440 that had rolled over. The cab was crushed, but the engine block was intact. He said the crankshaft was probably good. He wanted $400 for it. She sent a money order, cash. 2 weeks later, it arrived on a pallet, covered in dirt and grease. She cleaned it. She used a micrometer, just as the manual showed. She measured the journals. They were within spec. The book didn't lie. She needed pistons and sleeves. A yard in Sikeston, Missouri. They had a set from a tractor that had caught fire. The parts were heat-stained, but not warped. $600 for the set of 6. She sent another money order. Cash. They arrived in a wooden crate. She cleaned them. She measured them. They were within spec. The book didn't lie. Gaskets, bearings, seals. She found them through a parts broker in Wisconsin. He specialized in obsolete components. He charged a premium. $1,100 for a box of parts that would have cost $700 from the dealer. She paid it. Cash. The total cost was $2,100, a little more than 2/3 of what the dealer had quoted. It was almost all the money the farm had left. Now came the work. She used the chain hoist her father had welded together from scrap iron. She pulled the engine. It was a slow, terrifying process. The massive block of iron swinging free. She got it onto an engine stand. She followed the manual, page by page, diagram by diagram. Disassembly was the easy part. Cleaning was harder. Decades of caked-on grease and dirt. She used a wire brush and 5 gallons of diesel fuel. Her hands were raw. Her fingernails were black. Then came the precision work. The cylinder walls were scored. She needed to hone them. She couldn't afford to take the block to a machine shop. So she bought a cylinder hone for $50. She attached it to her father's old electric drill. The manual specified the exact crosshatch pattern required, a 45-degree angle. She practiced on a piece of scrap pipe for hours until she could get the motion right. Then she honed the cylinders, one by one, slowly, carefully. Her neighbor, an old farmer named Gus, came over one afternoon. He was in his 70s. He'd known her father his whole life. He stood in the doorway of the shop. He watched her for a long time. She didn't notice him at first. She was focused, measuring a cylinder bore with a telescoping gauge. He finally spoke. "Your dad would be proud, Alara." She looked up, startled. He walked over. He looked at the open manual. He looked at the parts laid out on the bench. He pointed a gnarled finger at the page. "Make sure you check the ring gap. Right there. Section 240-15-8. People always forget the ring gap." That's all he said. He didn't offer to help. He knew this was her fight. But he had witnessed it. He had validated her work. He had honored the process. The reassembly took a month. Every bolt was torqued to the exact specification in the book. Main bearings, 150 foot-pounds. Rod bolts, 85 foot-pounds. Head bolts, in sequence to 180 foot-pounds. She used her father's old torque wrench. The click it made was the most satisfying sound in the world. Finally, it was done. The engine was back in the tractor. Hoses connected, fluids filled, the battery charged. It was May 1st. The mortgage payment was due at the end of the month. The fields were still unplanted. Everything rested on this moment. She climbed into the cab. The vinyl seat was cracked. It smelled like her father. She took a deep breath. She turned the key. The starter groaned. The engine turned over. Slowly. Then faster. It coughed. A puff of white smoke came from the exhaust. It sputtered. It died. Her heart sank. She waited. She remembered a note her father had written in the margin of the fuel system chapter. Sometimes she's shy. Give her a minute. She turned the key again. The starter engaged. The engine turned. And then it caught. Not a sputter. A roar. A deep, powerful, even rumble. The sound of 130 horsepower reborn. She sat there for a long time, just listening. The oil pressure gauge was steady. The temperature was stable. She had done it. The book didn't lie. That afternoon, she drove the 4440 into the south field. She lowered the plow, and she went to work. The community watched. Farming communities are small towns spread over many miles. News travels on the wind. And along party lines, everyone knew Robert Vance was gone. Everyone knew Alara was trying to run the farm alone. Everyone had heard about the tractor. The community split into 3 camps. The first were the doubters. They were the majority. They weren't malicious. They were practical men who had farmed their whole lives. They'd gather for coffee at the grain co-op. One of them, a man named Dale, would shake his head. A girl trying to rebuild a quad-range engine in a dirt floor shop? It's a shame. Robert was a good man, but he filled her head with nonsense. She'll be bankrupt by Christmas. Another, named Frank, would chime in. Henderson over at Deere did the right thing trying to stop her. She's just being stubborn, prideful. That farm will be up for auction soon. I hear the big corporate farm from the next county is already sniffing around. Their words came from a place of experience, from a place of certainty. The same certainty as Mr. Henderson. Then there were the supporters, a smaller group, quieter. They were the old-timers, men like Gus. They remembered Alara's grandfather. They remembered how he had taught Robert. They saw the line of knowledge being passed down. Gus would sit at the same co-op counter. He would listen to the doubters. He wouldn't argue. He would just say, "The Vances have always known their iron. Her father taught her well. I saw the work she did. It was clean. It was right. Let the girl work." His quiet words carried weight, but they were drowned out by the chorus of doubt. Finally, there was the third camp, the largest camp of all, the Watchers. They said nothing. They just watched. They'd slow down their trucks as they drove past the Vance farm. They saw the 4440 in the field, day after day, plowing, planting. They saw the corn come up in neat, straight rows. They didn't offer help. They didn't offer criticism. They just watched, waiting to see who was right, Gus or Dale. Alara felt their eyes on her. She knew what they were saying. She knew they were waiting for her to fail. But proving them wrong was not the goal. Survival was the goal. The dirt was the goal. Let me tell you about the next 40 years. Because this is where the story stops being about one tractor and starts being about an empire built on overlooked value. The expansion happened slowly, then all at once. It was a rhythm, a drumbeat of work, cash, and growth. 1985, 3 successful harvests. The farm was stable. The profits were small, but they were hers. She had paid off the last of her father's medical bills. Cash. The 4440 now had 2,000 more hours on its rebuilt engine. It ran better than new. She had followed another one of her father's notes in the manual. A small modification to the fuel injector timing. Her fuel consumption was 15% lower than her neighbors with the same model. They started to notice. Dale, the doubter, saw her at the fuel co-op. He saw she was buying less diesel than he was. He didn't say anything. He just watched. 1988. The 80-acre parcel adjoining her farm to the west came up for sale. The owner was retiring. He was a friend of her father's. He could have sold it for more to the corporate farm. He sold it to Elara for 10% below market value. He said, "Your father once pulled my combine out of the mud in the middle of a thunderstorm. He wouldn't take a dime. This land is yours." She paid for it in full, cash, from 7 years of profits saved in a coffee can. She now owned 320 acres. 1992. She needed a second tractor. She went to a farm auction. There was an old John Deere 4020 in the back row from the 1960s. The engine was tired. The transmission whined. The auctioneer could barely get a bid. The local dealers, including a young salesman from Mr. Henderson's dealership, called it scrap. Elara bought it for $1,500. Cash. She hauled it back to her shop. That winter, she rebuilt it. She had found the technical manual for it at a flea market. The book didn't lie. By spring, she had 2 tractors, both paid for, both running perfectly. Her equipment cost per acre was a fraction of her neighbors. They were taking on massive debt for new machines. She was banking her profits. 1998. A drought hit the region. Crops failed. Farmers who were heavily leveraged were in trouble. Dale lost 160 acres to the bank. Frank had to sell his new combine. Elara's farm survived. Her lack of debt was a shield. She had money in the bank. She had stored grain from the previous good years. She bought Dale's 160 acres from the bank. She paid what they asked, cash. She now owned 480 acres. 2005. The rhythm continued. Year, acreage, method, result. Another 200 acres, cash. Another 350, cash. She bought tractors her neighbors sent to the scrapyard, a 4630, a 2510, an 830. For each one she found the manual. She did the work. Her fleet was old. It was immaculate. It was hyper-efficient. Mr. Henderson, now retired, would sometimes drive past her farm. He lived in a small house in town. He saw the new grain bins going up. He saw the expanding fields. He saw the fleet of old green tractors moving in perfect formation across the land. He would see the 4440, the one he had condemned, still working, still earning. He never stopped. He just watched from a distance, the quiet witness. By 2015, Elara Vance farmed 3,000 acres. She was one of the largest independent operators in the state. She had 0 debt, not a single loan, not a single financing plan. Her net worth was in the millions. It was all built on a foundation of knowledge from a book, and the refusal of a kind man to sell her the parts. His refusal had forced her to be self-sufficient. His certainty had forced her to become an expert. His kindness was the catalyst for her empire. What happened next changed everything. It brought the story full circle. The year is 2015. A shiny new pickup truck pulls into Alara's yard. The John Deere logo is on the side. A young salesman gets out. He is in his late 20s. His shirt is crisp. His smile is polished. He is the new generation of Marcus Henderson. Alara meets him on the porch. She is in her early 50s now. Her hands are strong. Her face is lined by the sun. Her eyes are clear. "Ma'am, my name is Kevin. I'm with the local dealership. I'd love to talk to you about our new line of autonomous-ready tractors, the 8R series." She nods, invites him to sit on the porch swing. He launches into his pitch. He talks about GPS guidance, telematics, cloud-based data management, yield mapping, subscription services. He talks for 20 minutes. He doesn't ask her a single question about her operation. He just assumes she needs what he is selling. When he's finished, he smiles. The top model, the 8370R, is an investment. But with our financing packages, we can make it work for you. We are talking about a paradigm shift in efficiency. Alara is quiet for a moment. Then she stands up. "Come with me, Kevin." She leads him to the workshop, the old pole barn. Inside, the 4440 is on the stand. Its engine is completely disassembled. The parts are laid out on clean benches. It is the tractor's 4th rebuild, a preventative overhaul she does every 10,000 hours. On the main bench, under the light, is the old technical manual. Its cover is gone. Its pages are translucent with grease. It is held together with duct tape. Alara picks it up. She hands it to the young salesman. He takes it, confused. "In 1982, your dealership told me the tractor this engine belongs to was too old to fix. A man named Marcus Henderson, a kind man. He refused to sell me the parts to rebuild it. He said he was protecting me from making a mistake." Kevin, the salesman, is speechless. Alara continues. Her voice is calm, factual. "This tractor has now worked over 30,000 hours since that day. It has paid for every single one of the 3,000 acres I farm. The first rebuild cost me $2,100 in salvage parts and my own labor. This rebuild will cost me about $4,000 in new parts I ordered from an independent supplier in Germany. Your new 8370R costs what? $600,000? Plus a $5,000 annual subscription for the guidance system?" She looks him in the eye. "Don't talk to me about efficiency." The young man just stands there, holding the greasy, tattered book. Everything he was taught in his sales training is useless. All his data points, all his talking points have dissolved in the face of this quiet, undeniable history. He looks at the perfectly organized parts. He looks at the immaculate workshop. He looks at this woman. And for the first time, he sees her. He doesn't see a potential customer. He sees a master of her craft. He leaves a few minutes later. He doesn't try to sell her anything else. 2 days later, Alara's phone rings. It's an unfamiliar number. She answers. A frail, elderly voice speaks. "Is this Alara Vance?" "Yes, it is." "This is Marcus Henderson." Alara is silent. The name hangs in the air. "The young man, Kevin, he came to see me. He told me what happened. He told me what you said. He told me about your shop, about the tractor." Henderson's voice cracks a little. "I've been retired for 20 years, Alara. I think about you sometimes. I drive by your place. I saw you grow. I never understood how. I just assumed you got lucky or married rich." He pauses. "I was wrong. That's what I called to say. I was wrong. I thought I was being kind, but I was just being certain. And my certainty cost you. It cost you time. It cost you struggle. It made your path harder than it needed to be. I am sorry." This is the moment, the reckoning, 40 years in the making. Ilara could have said anything. She could have reminded him of his pity, of his condescension. She could have listed every acre, every dollar he had bet against her. But she didn't. Her heroism was in her restraint. She said one quiet thing. "Thank you for calling, Mr. Henderson." Then she added, "It wasn't a harder path. It was just my path. And you were right about one thing. Your refusal did protect me. It protected me from ever needing to ask a man like you for permission again." She hung up the phone. Proving someone wrong who thinks they're being kind is the loneliest fight there is. There is no triumph, no victory parade. There is only the quiet, devastating satisfaction of the work itself. But that's not the end of the story. Because a legacy is not what you build for yourself, it's what you leave for others. The story of Ilara Vance and her tractors began to spread. Kevin, the young salesman, quit his job at the dealership a month later. He went back to school for agricultural engineering. He said he wanted to learn how things actually worked. He was the first ripple. The bigger ripple was Dr. Alistair Finch. He had heard a rumor from a former student about a farmer in Ohio running a fleet of perfectly optimized legacy tractors. He was skeptical. He came to visit. Ilara showed him everything: her shop, her tractors, her library of technical manuals, now dozens of them collected over 40 years, and her father's logbooks, decades of handwritten notes on fuel consumption, oil analysis, and performance modifications, a treasure trove of data. Finch spent a week on the farm. He was stunned. This wasn't just a farmer fixing old equipment. This was a systematic, data-driven approach to optimization. Ilara had, in isolation, developed techniques that university labs were only just discovering. Her modifications were simple, elegant, and profoundly effective. He documented her work. The paper he presented in Omaha was the result. The Vance modifications, as they came to be known, became a chapter in agricultural engineering textbooks. Suddenly, Ilara's quiet farm was a destination. Students, engineers, and farmers came from all over the world. They came to see the 4440. They came to see the workshop. They came to learn. She never charged them a dime. She just shared the knowledge, the way her father had shared it with her. In 2023, a year after the symposium, Ilara did something else. She used the profits from her farm to establish a foundation, the Vance Legacy Fund. Its sole purpose is to provide scholarships for young people, especially women, wanting to study agricultural mechanics or engineering. It is called the Shop Manual Scholarship. Each recipient gets full tuition, and a toolbox, and a copy of the technical manual for a 1979 John Deere 4440. The first scholarship recipient was a young woman from rural Iowa. Her guidance counselor had told her that girls don't usually go into diesel mechanics. She sent Ilara a letter. It said, "Thank you for showing me the book doesn't lie." Ilara's son Robert, named after his grandfather, now helps run the farm. He uses the same tractors, the same methods. He is teaching his own daughter how to read a micrometer, the generational echo, the knowledge passed down. A legacy that is not made of steel or money, but of capability. The freedom that comes from knowing how to fix your own world. Today, if you visit the Vance farm, you will find the workshop is a little bigger. The tools are a little newer. But in the center, on a clean bench, sits the old 4440. It's retired now, a monument. Its green paint is polished, its engine is silent. And on the wall behind it, mounted in a simple wooden frame, is a single grease-stained piece of graph paper. The note from her father. The book doesn't lie. Nearby, hanging from a nail, is the physical artifact of this whole story, the original technical manual, the one from 1982. Its pages are so worn they are like onion skin. You can feel the 40 years of labor in its weight. You can smell the faint scent of diesel and determination. It is not just a book, it is a declaration of independence. The most dangerous limitation is the one imposed by someone who genuinely believes they are protecting you. Certainty, delivered with a kind smile, is a cage. It tells you what is and is not possible for you. It defines your boundaries. Ilara Vance's story is a quiet instruction manual on how to break out of that cage. Not with anger, not with speeches, but with work, with patience, with the slow, methodical, undeniable proof of a job well done. Right now, somewhere in the world, a young person is at a counter, and a kind person on the other side is telling them what they cannot do, for their own good. They are drawing a circle and smiling. This story is for them. It's a reminder that the most important knowledge isn't what others know about you. It's what you are willing to learn for yourself. It's a reminder that the book doesn't lie. If this story meant something to you, subscribe to this channel. We tell the stories of the quiet victors. Drop a comment and tell us about a shop manual moment in your own life. A time when you had to trust the book, not the experts. And finally, share this video. Share it with someone who is standing at a counter, being told what they can't do. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that their path is their own, and that the only permission they ever really need is their own.